Okay. Do you guys see my screen well? Okay, good, thank you. Last Wednesday, we learned about the essence of operations management. And we learned that operations management is really valuable because of COIN. C is cost saving, O is organizational employment, I is for innovation, and N is for national chain effects. All of them are very important. And I would emphasize innovation and chain effects, and operations harbors the potential to bring chain effects to the economy and our lives. So that's why it is really important. And I defined operations management as value creation through transformation of inputs into goods and services. And I would put emphasis on value. What is the value that we want to create? That has to be clear, and operations management is a medium that creates that value for customers. And lastly, we talked about the pillars of operations management. I said it can be summarized as QPIC: quality, process, and inventory, and capacity. So that's a QPIC. And operations management is about decision making in these four areas. And in this course, we'll cover these four pillars of operations management. If you have not signed up for operations management, my OM lab, please do so. Because quiz 1 is going to be offered soon, and it'll be due. So please sign up for my OM lab. I acknowledge that it's a little bit expensive, and I explained that to you in the beginning of the course. Quizzes and exams will be delivered to you through my OM lab. Homework, first one is discussion question 1, and the main post is due this Friday. So by midnight, you are supposed to post your main post by that time. And I encourage you not to wait till the last minute because it's hard for me to read everything if we post it at the last minute. And also 5 responses are due. Right now, there are 3 posts. All are very well written. I was glad to read them. And you can agree or disagree by responding to them. So for full credits, I encourage you to make 5 responses by Monday. However, I encourage you not to put them on just on the due date, but work on it throughout the week. Because by reading, you learn a lot of perspectives from other students, and from interaction, you can also learn that too. And textbook and case 1 will be presented this coming Wednesday, and I encourage you to read that case about RD and be prepared for discussion when the group is presenting and leading the discussion. Again, let me show you the overview of the course. Exam 1 will cover the introduction part, and then the other 4 chapters: OM strategy, product design, quality, and statistical process control chart. In exam 2, the next 4 chapters will be covered by that. And exam 3 will cover 3 chapters and SAP exercises. And as I said, quality, process, inventory, and capacity are covered in that order. And today we are going to talk about chapter 2. So, operations strategy. Let's talk about 3 things: the reason for strategy, the content of strategy, and operations strategy and productivity. I may not have the time to cover productivity, and I'm sure that you guys are capable of doing or calculating productivity because it's quite straightforward concept. I just saw somebody texted or chatted. While I'm lecturing, it might be difficult for me to check it, but if you guys happen to see if it is an important content, please feel free to stop me so that I can, learn what that is about and address that. So let's first talk about why strategy. So why do we need strategy? That's the first question that we want to address. And you have learned many things about strategy. And I would say the number one reason why we need a strategy is because of our limitations in resources. For example, we have 50 states in the United States, right? And if you decided to travel to one state per 1 month, then it will take over 4 years to visit each and every state. And there are so many things in this world that we should do and we want to do. And it's just impossible for us to do everything. And a strategy is about choosing what activities should we focus on. So if you think that travel is something that I really want to do, and which is, I think, very important, and I encourage you to travel around, not only in the United States, but also outside of the United States. And doing so, we can learn that this world is huge, and there are many different perspectives and things like that. And you can have the world in your mind. So in that reason, I think it's very important. When we are younger, traveling around can be opening our eyes to other things. So that's a good thing. But however, it is also important for us to understand that there's a trade-offs between our choices. For example, it'll be very difficult for us to work and travel. Although these days there are bloggers who travel professionally and post everything that they learned on blogs, and that's advertised and that carries so many viewers, and that can be a thing. But in most cases, we don't have the ability to travel and work at the same time, although it's desirable. So these trade-offs limit us from doing everything, and we have to choose what we are going to do. For example, say your capital is $1 million. You have $1 million, you want to do business, and you have to choose. You may not be able to do retail business or a startup business or consulting business all at the same time. It might be impossible for you to do so. You may have to focus on one thing at a time because of the trade-off. So we do need to consider what consequences we bring by making that choice. And in economic terms, it is called opportunity cost. By choosing to do something, you are letting other opportunity go. And if you are a wise person, you will determine that my choice is creating better values than the other opportunities that I lost by making that choice. For example, you came to come to class or go to school before getting a job, and you think that that's a better choice than just working right away, and you lost that chance to work for it. So we have to maximize our benefit or utility of our choice, and strategy is doing that. Another reason why we need a strategy is because of competition. And my brother is a bankruptcy lawyer, and he said to me, I asked him once, what is the number one reason that business go bankrupt? And he asked me back, what do you think? Why do you think businesses are going bankrupt all the time? And I said to him, probably it's because they made a wrong choice, or they were tight on their cash, or mistakes happen along their operations. And sometimes like COVID-19 like situation happens and you cannot just avoid your bankruptcy. And he said the number one reason, throughout my career, I have seen many customers and businessmen. The number one reason why people go bankrupt is because of competition. Competition is so severe that business go bankrupt, and we need a strategy to beat the competition all the time. And competition takes many forms and changes and develops. So we need to be always aware of the competition around us and think about the strategy to beat that competition. And it's a same thing, but effectiveness. How can we get things done more effectively than just doing it the same way over and over again, right? So those are the reasons why we need a strategy. Let me give you these pictures, and please tell me what city is this. 50 years ago, this city looked like this. So it was full of, it's like a desert. It is a desert. And there were not many homes, and the homes looked like that. 50 years later, it looks like that. So there are many more new buildings, and it's like skyscrapers, and we see skylines, and much more lively and a lot more developed than before. And they even built their own islands. They didn't have this kind of islands, but they built it themselves, and it looks like that. And then they have buildings, and the highest building in the world is located in this city. And lastly, although it's a very hot area, they also made a ski resort in this city, so that if you want, you can go and enjoy skiing in this hot place. Anybody know what city this is?
Dubai.
Oh, great job, Dubai. This is Dubai. Dubai was such a barren place before, but now it transformed and became one of most prospering cities in the world. And the question is that how were they able to achieve this kind of transformation from nothing to prosperity? Such a dramatic transformation happened in the city. So when we think about this Dubai, we see the possibility of, oh wow, if desert can become such a place like this, what about other places, right? What about Philadelphia? What about Glassboro? Can't we become this kind of place? We can ask that question. And there was an article about this and what made this transformation possible by Kim and Mauborgne. I don't know if I am pronouncing it right. And they found these reasons. First one is that, they did not have any investors interested in the city at all. And they did not have wealth and money and infrastructure to draw within. So what they did was, we don't have money. However, there are many cities and people outside of the city that they have much money and they might be interested in investing in us. So that's what they thought. Yeah, we have nothing, but lots of money out there. So let's bring them to the city. So what they did was, let us give some incentives for them to come. So the first thing that they did was 100% foreign ownership and free repatriation of capital and profits. In other words, it's just free for you to own the land or building, and they are not going to tax you for that. And you can freely send money or receive money, and they are not going to bother you with that at all. And the second thing that they did was they charged no import or re-export duties. So there are no duties. It's free for you to do business and export and trade in the country. The third thing is the corporate tax is zero. Compared to Dubai, United States has 25% of corporate tax. So if you make $1,000, $250 you have to just pay for tax. But in this country, no tax at all. And for the 15 to 20 years, and they are willing to extend the benefit. And then one can begin his own business in 30 minutes. So although there is a language barrier and, opening business can be a very cumbersome process. They made it very simple so that one person can start their business in 30 minutes. So very business-friendly environment they built. And all documentation is written in English so that they have standardized in English and lower the language barrier as much as they could. And they somehow built world-class airport and harbor and shipping services. And the logistics is excellent. And for these reasons, they were able to transform the place and attract a lot of foreign investors to the country, and that the transformation was made possible. If you compare that, here is the graph that tells you the proposition, profit proposition of Dubai. Sorry, I forgot putting the reference here, but it's the same author, Kim, and it's published in the Harvard Business Review. And so they said, oil-based Arab economies, their dependence on oil is really high, and Dubai does not have much. And as far as I know, Dubai does not produce any oil at the time when this article was written. And social liability costs, in other words, the cost that the society or the city is paying for the citizens was quite high at the time in Arab, but in Dubai, no, it was not the case. Military and administrative costs is high in other oil-based Arab economies, but Dubai is very low. However, reputation is quite high in Dubai, and non-oil-based business activities are very high in Dubai. So it's opposite of other economies in the region, and they were able to make such a success. So the question is this, if Dubai was able to craft a strategy that can transform a desert into a very successful city, why not? It's a matter of strategy. And when we have that strategy, we can make this kind of transformation possible. Here's another example that I want to take. I don't know if you recognize him. He is R.A. Dickey. Do you guys know who R.A. Dickey is? Yeah, so R.A. Dickey was drafted to Texas Rangers after high school right away with a sizable contract. However, at the medical test, he was denied his contract because it was found that he does not have ligament in his arm on the right hand. And Texas Rangers denied his contract and sent him to minor league. And his contract was reduced to $75,000 per year. And he had to travel around and had a difficult time. But he met his wife and married. However, later, he had an extramarital affair, and it was caught by his wife, and they both had such a difficult time together. And however, thankfully, his wife, continued to live with him, did not divorce with him. And what happened was he found that he was sexually abused when he was younger, and that had a darkness in his heart, and he was vulnerable to, for some reason, with some kind of temptations. And However, his wife was very supportive of him and willing to work with him, and he resolved the matter. And what he did was he was a fastball thrower before, but now he became he does not have a ligament, and so he knew that he cannot go on throwing fastball, and he had to do something different, very different, because he cannot be he cannot sustain himself to be a fastball thrower. So what he did was he chose to practice and become a knuckleball thrower. And as you know, knuckleball is a very curvy ball, and it does not um, strain your arm as much because you are just throwing it with skills, not with power. And he became a knuckleball thrower and practiced a lot. And as you know, New York Jets won. Did they win World Series or no? I think they at least won one. Did they become National League champion? I think so. Anyway, and at the time he won so many big wins and became the MVP and Cy Young award he received later. So there was at 38 years old, Dickey won the Cy Young award. So when everyone was retiring, there was his pinnacle of his career, and he won this prestigious award. And isn't he still throwing at Toronto Blue Jays? Anybody?
I think he retired.
He did? Oh, I see. So I think he was throwing it until recently, and he recently retired, I guess. So when we think about R.A. Dickey, his strategy is also very interesting, and he had very severe limitation that he did not have a ligament in his arm, and because of that, he had to struggle for a long time. And after many struggles, he decided to go with a knuckleball, and he became very successful knuckleballer. And that's also interesting to read, and it gives us a lot of ideas about what strategy could do for us. Another example is Tesla, and as you know, Tesla has been very successful, and as you know, the capital in the market exceeded GM. So we know that Tesla is the number one in terms of the capital and stock price in New York market. And we know that it has come up with many strategies. But one of them is this no dealership model. And as you know, Tesla does not sell their cars in a dealership, but sell it online. And this is very clever. First of all, because you don't have to, haggle with dealers to determine or negotiate the price. You have the set price, and that's what it is. So they use this tag price all the time, everywhere, and doing so, they were able to save costs for dealership and prevented this hassling with customers from happening. The second thing is that they receive deposit from customers first. So customers make $100,000 of deposit first, and then they are making it not to make to sell, but they receive order first and then sell them to fulfill the order to the customers. Doing so, they made their forecasting very stable. It's very accurate forecast because they know how many customers are going to buy them. And also by collecting this customer deposit, they have very good cash position because they already received money from the customers. And this was a clever decision for them to go with. And this strategy is working very well. So why strategy? I would say strategy is important because it is an impetus for us to overcome our limitations and lack of resources. We all struggle as a business to operate and win the competition. However, when there is a well-formulated strategy, then we can beat the competition, beat the limitations. And actually, the limitations turn us to strength because we try to overcome the limitations with other strategies. The second topic that I want to discuss is the content of strategy. Let us define what strategy is. Strategy is a set of decisions and plans and policies by which a company aims to gain advantages over its competitors. So it was an old definition, but it's still being quoted and used by many management scholars. And this one is from Skinner. And it's a set of decisions and plans and policies. So a strategy is a very broad concept, and it includes many sets of decisions and plans and policies all together. And the goal is to gain advantages over its competitors. And Schroeder, he decided to define it as the characteristics of the advantage. What kind of advantages are we talking about? These advantages are valuable and immutable and non-substitutable. These are the characteristics that we want to achieve through strategy. So in other words, the advantages that we are creating must be valuable. We cannot pursue something invaluable. Of no worth that we cannot do. We have to create something valuable, and it has to be inimitable. In other words, it's very hard to copy, and competitors might have difficult time to copy the strategy. And the third thing is it's not substitutable. The advantage should not be replaced by other services or products easily. So that's three things that they mentioned. So, for example, if we look at Nike said, bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. So that's their value statement or mission statement. They say, our value is not just making a lot of money by selling shoes and other sports gears to customers. That's what they are not pursuing for. The value they are pursuing is bringing inspirations and innovations to every athlete. And they define the athlete as, if you have a body, you are an athlete. That's what they say. So everyone is just an athlete, and they want to bring inspirations and innovations to them. So that's what they are pursuing. That's the value that they are pursuing. And McDonald's is also doing that. I'm loving it. So they deliver these best and delicious foods to the customers. And unfortunately, their business model has been copied by so many people. And for example, my kids like to go to either Burger King or what is that place? Arby's, right? Arby's. They prefer those places to McDonald's. So we know that their advantage has been copied and substituted by other things. And another example is Kodak. Kodak has been very successful. It has been a flagship company of the United States for 100 years. However, they were substituted by digital technology. What is said about Kodak is that Kodak had a patent for digital camera. They are the one who came up with digital camera first. However, there were conflicts between this digital camera department and analog camera departments, and unfortunately, this analog camera department was overpowering digital camera department, and they did not pay much attention to it, and they were too slow to respond to that and substituted by. So advantages are existing. However, can we make it valuable, inimitable, and non-substitutable? That's the question. How can we sustain these advantages as long as possible? Another thing that we want to consider is that there are dimensions in strategy. And there are 4 dimensions that we can use for this strategy usually. They are time and quality, cost, and flexibility. If you look at any operations or any strategy, you will see that they are focusing on one of these dimensions. For example, time. Can you think of any companies that are focusing on competing on time?
Probably distribution companies like FedEx, UPS, USPS who want to be the fastest.
Very good. So FedEx, UPS, those are logistic companies or trucking companies. They are focusing on it. Even pizza stores, which pizza store is faster than the others, right? That is also a dimension of competition. Good. Any other example of business that focus on time?
Amazon with Prime shipping.
Great, right. So before Prime, customers were not really committed to Amazon. However, Prime is about membership, and you pay $100-something, and you're committing yourself to Amazon and become a very loyal customer. And they made this 2-day shipping possible, and they expanded it to grocery shopping too. And that was a real game changer for Amazon. And at first, Walmart thought, yeah, we can deal with it. But now Walmart is seriously undermined by the competition from Amazon. Very good. What about quality? Can you think of companies that are competing on quality?
I'd say probably an example of like competing quality is definitely the car industry. Different car manufacturers are constantly trying to produce different cars from different sectors, like electronic or hybrid, and they're constantly competing with each other to try and produce the most qualitable models.
Very good. Thank you, Rocco. Yeah, I agree with you. Car industry is a good example of competing on quality. And you have low-end company, right? And you have also high-end company. Mitsubishi can be considered as a low-end company. However, Mercedes-Benz or BMW, or even you can talk about Lamborghini. They have so expensive products available, but customers lined up to get that car by paying so much price for that. Right, very good. So quality we see everywhere. Many companies are competing on quality, and another example would be Apple computer like MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or iPhone versus Xiaomi, right? Xiaomi has also their own phones and offerings, but they are competing on quality. Good. What about cost? Can you think of any business that compete on cost?
Something like Walmart or like Kmart, those big giant companies that are always competing on who has the lowest cost for the goods.
Great job. So, the motto of Walmart is everyday low price, right? That's their motto. And they are competing for cost. So the race to the bottom line, that's what they are doing. Very good. Any other example for cost?
Say insurance agencies?
Say it again, please.
Insurance?
Insurance company, right? Yeah. So Geico has gained a lot of market share because they offered competitive insurance to customers. Very good. What about flexibility? Can you think of any example? No example.
I'd say probably an example of flexibility in industry could definitely be the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry has to, like in hospitals and such, and insurance companies have to respond very swiftly, especially now with COVID. The policy for billing and treatment is constantly changing. So the entire industry as a whole has to be very flexible and open-minded in order to keep their businesses afloat.
Oh wow, that's an excellent example, Rocco. Yeah. So healthcare industry, some place has only reached specialization, but when you go to hospital, they have all kinds of services available, and they can deal with you, right? What about like a GM dealership model? If you go to GM dealership, what happens is that you not only purchase that service or their car, but also they finance you with their financial department, and they give you certain interest rate and let you borrow the money and buy the car. And they also have this service of repairs or maintenance is being done by the dealership as well. So the dealership is offering you not only the car but also the financial costs, and then taking care of and maintaining the car. Doing so, it is offering a lot of flexibility to the company. Similarly, if you become a Sam's Club member, you can do many things, and or the same goes to Costco membership or Prime membership with Amazon, and they are the things that you can do with flexibility. Okay. So now let's do a small class exercise. I want you to compare and contrast Apple with Samsung in terms of their strategy on the 4 dimension of strategy, and draw the graph and share with the class. So I want you to, on top right, you see the graph, and and the scale has to be relative, and you can use that and try to compare and contrast and see how they are different. So I'm going to give you about 3 to 5 minutes to do so.
I have a question regarding this graph. So for the cost section, if it were to move further down, would that mean it's increasing in cost or increasing in like cost efficiency?
That's a good question. Oops. That's a good question. So say if it is Walmart, is it competing on cost the most? Cost is very important aspect of competition. So it'll be very close to like it is, if it is 1 to 5, it will be close to 5, right? So it's going to be close to cost over here. However, if it is BMW, then it's going to be over there. If it is a Target, maybe about 4, right? So 1 to 5 scale. That's how I would do that. If it is GM, flexibility will be high, right? If it is one company like Mitsubishi, then flexibility will be lower.
I'd like to share.
Okay, thanks, Tyler.
So Samsung, I felt, was very balanced. For me, it's just kind of like a perfect diamond. I personally use a Samsung cell phone, my third one since 2015. But Samsung also makes various appliances also, like of course, they do phones, tablets, laptops, and all that, but they also do TVs, ovens, kitchen appliances. So what they lack in, say, flexibility in their cell phones, which may be color options and different uh, levels of affordability, they may make up for on their other lines of products. So there's a lot of things in my house that I didn't realize were Samsung. Like my fridge and TV are both Samsung made. Where Apple focuses mostly on consumer tech, and so they're probably just as flexible, where they have more options for each of their products they make, but they make less products. That was a key difference that I found between the two. I do find that Apple generally has a higher cost perception. Uh, so maybe that comes in the quality of Apple's products, but I find that Samsung usually costs more in actuality. So I wasn't really sure how to balance the cost and quality between the two, because one seems like it costs more, one actually costs more.
I see. So I think Apple and Samsung, their phones are, they offer very similar pricing. Is that right? Or is Apple is more expensive?
Apple feels more expensive, but I think Samsung devices usually cost a little more.
Okay, I got you.
And I found time for both of them to be just about the same.
I see. You think so? Because I feel like Samsung offers their products and newer features faster than Apple.
They both come out with the new devices about once a year, but in terms of delivery and care of the products, kind of getting them at the same rate. Maybe a point to Apple is they have physical locations, whereas Samsung doesn't, but I haven't really been impacted by that.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to share the comments or differences that you thought?
I think the perception of Apple being more expensive is just a sign that they have a better job of marketing their quality than Samsung does.
I see. Yeah. I think they have powerful arms of advertisement, and also they do offer very good quality phones. And we have this perception that Apple is very innovative. This is the company that came up with iPod and iPhone first, and then iPad. So, okay. In terms of so Kun said quality and flexibility are different, and Apple might offer security, especially, no one can the company allowed individuals to have complete control over their phones, so that's a good thing. They don't unlock the phone for government request. So if you use this kind of dimensions, you will see that what companies are emphasizing one or other dimensions more than the other companies. So it's a good way to understand their strategies. And this is what I just found while doing research, and I learned that Apple enjoys 65% of profit margin. So if it's $1,000, $650 is a profit, and that's really high profit margin. And the others are just struggling to catch up with Apple. And this is something that I just worked on, and I gave Samsung to compete on time more than Apple, because they give a lot of features and ahead of Apple. That's how they try to compete. But I think that Apple is more offering higher quality and cost. Samsung is more aware of cost in that sense. But the thing is that in smartphone and computer industry, quality wins. So more than cost or time or flexibility. That's what I see. So just for your information, there are 3 types of strategy according to Michael Porter, who came up with this classification of strategy. First one is general strategy. If you do everything, that's flexibility. And usually conglomerates like GE pursue flexibility. And Samsung is a conglomerate again. They make everything, right? Apple does not make a semiconductor or memory, but Samsung does. So they are pursuing general strategy. Differentiation strategy is that you focus on quality only, then it's going to be a differentiation strategy. You are differentiating yourself from other business through your focus on quality. Focus strategy is niche strategy, cost leadership, or response. These are focus strategy according to Michael E. Porter. The third thing that I want to discuss with you is operation strategy. Now we generally talked about strategy, and we also want to learn about operation strategy. And if you look at any business, they have mission statements, and mission statement drives their organizational goals. Then they have organizational strategies, and they spread to other functions such as finance or accounting or operations, marketing, you name it. And those functional strategies have to be aligned with their corporate strategy together. And what you want to think of is that this is a golden circle by Sinek, and he said the most important thing in strategy is to consider these 3 things: what, and how, and why. These 3 things. And he said most companies start with what? What should we do? And how should we do? And why should we do? For example, what should we make? We should make a phone. How should we make it? Should we outsource it or make it ourselves? And why should we make it? Because we want to make our company more profitable. That's the usual approach. In other words, that's outside-in approach. However, Sinek, he recommended successful companies are not starting from what, but they start from why. So, why are we making the products, and how should we make it, and what should we make it? So that's how successful companies are thinking of their strategy. And I also encourage you to adopt this method for your own personal strategy as well. For example, I want to make a lot of money. How? I should find a very good job. And why? Because I want to live, a very good life afterward. That's the usual approach of the people. But successful people start with why. How should I live? Why should I live? Why should I do this or that? And how should I do that? And what should I do there to achieve that? And that's the approach that they take, and that's called the inside-out approach. And this golden circle, why, has to be clear and answered, then it can be a very successful strategy. I just want to share with you. And let's go to this functional strategy. Now, if we graphically show what is happening in operation strategy, we see that corporate strategy usually drives business strategy, and then that drives operation strategy. And as you know, as I said, there are many functions that we have to consider. And operation strategy itself has mission and distinctive competence and objectives and policies. And we have to make decisions about these cubic areas and dimensions of the quality. And the important thing is that our functional strategies have to be congruent to the corporate strategy. they have to be aligned together, and consistency has to appear in all these areas. And through that, we can make our business more consistent. Here's an example of that. So look at Shop One. Shop One is a furniture store, and they use broad distribution and a limited low line and wide consumer advertising, decentralized storage, readily available merchandise, rock bottom cost, and large lot sizes, low and medium skilled workers, and large scale plants. Can you think of any furniture store that uses this kind of operations practices and strategy?
Like the strategy is shop one or shop two?
Shop One.
Shop one would be like IKEA.
IKEA. That was what I was thinking. Very good. So IKEA is a very good example of Shop One, and they are going for low cost strategy and economy of scale. And to align with their strategy, they made their operations to follow this kind of practices: broad distribution and wide consumer advertising, limited low line, and large lot sizes and everything.
I know restoration hardware is pretty expensive, but I don't really know any other higher price furniture.
I see. Restoration.
Would it be like Crate and Barrel?
That's a very good example too. Right. So those companies are going for high price and a lot of customization and production to order. They receive order and produce. So those are the things that they can take advantage of. And because of their strategy or their value is quite different from IKEA, the way they operate is quite different. So what I'm trying to say is that corporate strategy, they are pursuing different values, and according to the values, we have to align our operations as well. Now we are on productivity. So how should we now, evaluate the value we are producing? And there's a debate about efficiency versus effectiveness. Efficiency is doing things very well at lowest possible cost, but that's quite different from effectiveness. Effectiveness, doing the right thing to create the most value. And as I say, many businesses are interested in efficiency, but what matters the most is effectiveness, doing the right thing to create the most value. So just doing things efficiently bring us to nowhere, but doing things right and achieving the goal and creating value for ourselves and customers, that's what matters. So productivity is defined as unit produced and divided by input used, and it's all about efficiency. But we have to debate whether this is the right measure for effectiveness, right? And sometimes productivity would be lower, but effectiveness might be high, right? For example, you might produce a lot of units of cars with defects. That's a very terrible way of doing business. But although you don't produce as many cars, if they are functioning right, that's better, right? So effectiveness versus efficiency we have to talk about. However, I just want you to know that productivity is very much efficiency oriented. The way we think is very much efficiency oriented, and that's not necessarily a good way to go about. So productivity is defined in this way, and you can calculate it very easily. So this part, I'm sure that you know. And what you don't know is that input and output can be multiple parts. For example, input can be labor productivity, and also it can be equipment or capital that you have put in, or other things or cultures can be counted as inputs. So the question is, how do we know how do we know that our labor is productive, or our capital is productive, or our energy is productive? What is really the inputs that we have to put when we calculate productivity? That's the question. Usually in business, we go about the money we spent. That's our input, and the output is the revenue that we generate. That's how they look at it. But that's a very rudimentary way of analyzing the input, and we want to be much more serious about that. And for example, a class. What do you think about class? A class is about a faculty giving a lecture and all that, PowerPoints and class activities, and that's input. What is the output? Is it student satisfaction, or SIR, or the GPA that they are receiving, or what is it, right? How do we measure the output? That's a real debate in any organization. And unfortunately, people just measure and do things that they are seeing and what they can feel and what is tangible. And that's something that we need to think about, because they can distort all the systems that we are going to be doing in business. So anyway, when multiple inputs are going together, we say this is multi-factor productivity, and we want to calculate this multi-factor productivity, and it's not that difficult because you just need to put that into the equation. But in real life, it's hard to put all the multi-factors into consideration. But for practice, we are doing that together. So here's a multi-factor measures: output over labor plus machine, or output over labor plus capital plus energy. All these components are going into inputs, and that becomes total measures. Here's an example. Glassboro Glass Company has 10 staffs, each working 8 hours per day, and overhead cost is $50 per day. This company makes 10 audio sets each day. This company is trying to buy a new machine that allows the processing of 15 audio sets per day. For using this machine, all things are same except for overhead expenses. The question first is compare the labor productivity before and after the new system. So you have to calculate the productivity by labor and compare that before and after labor productivity and see what the difference is. The second question is compare the multi-factor productivity before and after the new system. So first question considers only labor productivity. Second one is putting all these factors together into the equation. We have labor productivity and we have overhead cost too, right? So this is also a straightforward example. However, it can get easily very complicated if we want to do the calculation right. So here's an answer. So first of all, if you have this kind of question, you want to write down the information you can glean from the question. And the first one is number of steps. We saw that there are 10 steps there, and each working 8 hours per day. And the payroll cost was $100 per day. So that's $800. And overhead expenses was $50, and output 10 units per day. And then after implementing new system, we have 15 units of the production per day instead of 10 units. So that's an improvement. But overhead cost is now $100 per day. So how would it change? And if you do analysis of productivity, labor productivity with all the system will be 10 units per day of the output. That's the output. Input is, they are working 8 hours, and that cost is $100. So 8 times 100 will be $800, right? So 10 divided by 800 will give you 0.125. right? So we see 12.5 units per 0.125 units per hour. That's your labor productivity with old system. And with the new system, we have 15, and the labor did not change, right? Labor did not change. We don't have any information about labor. So it stays the same, and it gives 0.1875 of the labor productivity. And we are considering only labor productivity. Because of the new system, we can say the labor productivity increased from 0.125 to 0.875. And you can calculate the percentage increase by using percent calculation too. And multi-factor productivity with old system will be the output stays the same, but the input changes. $100 plus 50 per day, and that gives you 0.067 units per dollar. And with new system, now we also consider the overhead cost of the new system, and that's 100 plus 100 and 0.75 units per dollar. An improvement for LP, labor productivity, will be this. So 0.1875 minus 125 divided by 125 will give you 50% increase, and multi-factor will give you 11.9%. So it's a little bit, it gets a little bit complicated, but it's not a difficult calculation. Here are the problems of measuring productivity. First of all, quality is neglected. It just count output. For example, how many cars were produced. We don't talk about how good the car is. So that's a very big weakness of productivity. And the second is external elements may influence on the productivity. And in Chinese, it goes, it is written like this. And for example, although the same number of people are working, if the air is not good or the weather is too hot, your productivity will be lowered. Or the weather was really good, then your productivity will increase. Those external elements will influence the productivity, but we have no way of knowing it, right? So that's another weakness of productivity. And precise units of measure may be lacking, especially in consulting service. How do you define good service, or how do you define the serving customers right? Those things may be very difficult to determine. As a result, it's hard to calculate productivity for this kind of work. So these three things are weaknesses of productivity measure. Okay, in summary, today we learned that why strategy is important. I want to remind you of Dubai. I want to remind you of Dickey, R.A. Dickey, and many other companies that are overcoming their resource constraints and limitations. Strategy became the impetus to overcome those limitations and constraints and competition. So, all of you have limitations. I have limitations, and we all face competition. However, when we carefully think about strategy that sets us apart from others, that can be an impetus for us to overcome them. So don't just do the same thing that others are doing. Think of the strategy that will differentiate yourself from others. Give the time, give thoughts on the strategy so that your life can be different from others, and you can do things that minimize or cover your weaknesses. And what is strategy? We learned that it's all about creating sustainable advantage. It has to be inimitable, it is valuable, and it is non-substitutable. Those three characteristics you have to have by your strategy. The third thing is that operations strategies are part of corporate strategy, and it has to be aligned together with corporate strategy. Those are the three things that we learned today. Any questions? We have only 1 minute left. Again, discussion question number 1 and the chapter 1 and 2. So Abby said you could not find competing resources that are equal. Yeah, so the case number 1 is not that one, it's RD one. I think, Abby, I don't know, where did you read that? I think I need to update that thing. The case number 1 is RD case on your textbook. And RD has made a tremendous stride in retail industry. For example, RD in Glassboro is phenomenal. Before RD was bottom dollar, if you remember it, and it went bankrupt. And before there was some other retail store and it went bankrupt. But RD is prospering in Glassboro. And that is the case that we learn on this Wednesday. And the case is available on the textbook. Any question? Okay, good. It was good to see all of you, and I will see you on Wednesday. If you are presenting on Wednesday, I believe I need to see you after this class, so please remain on the line and we can keep on discussing together. And have a great a few days, and I will see you in a couple of days. Bye.
Bye, have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks, Professor.
Nice.
I have a question about.
Bye, have a nice day.
You actually.
Okay.
You mentioned mentioning real business like practices. Is that more of like just like a supply chain example, or do you mean like the Starbucks example like that you gave, like the exact like time cutting, or more general of like a supply chain?
I meant company example like Starbucks.
So you mean like they did the 20, they don't need the signature anymore, so like it literally cuts this much money?
Right.
Stuff like that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So
Also,
I want you to be specific about operations improvement. And another example that I can talk about is RD. RD, if you go to RD, have you been there before?
no.
Yeah, so you may want to check it out because it's a very small company. So on average, Walmart carries 40,000 products, items in their store, but RD carries only 1,400 items in their product. It's a very small and it's packed. However, their revenue is quite high. We don't have as many selection, but they are very effective because they are selling only something worth selling or something popular with customers.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of improvement because you don't have to struggle with inventory management, forecasting, and all kinds of logistical issues.
And then one more thing, I don't have a group for the case study. Would you be assigning them by chance?
I can help you to find your team members.
Okay.
What I did was I asked the students to find their own members if you like to, but if you need help, I'm more than willing to help you to match you with another group.
Yeah, I'll probably need help. That was all. Have a good day.
Okay.
Hi, Professor. Since we spoke last week about MyLab, on Thursday I was trying to purchase the, I think, $5 MyLab, but I realized I lost my wallet. So I had to reorder my credit cards and debit cards through Bank of America. So I'm not able to purchase anything at the moment, so it'll probably be a couple more days before my cards arrive in the mail. I wanted to ask if there's anything that I miss, if there's anything listed in MyLab that's not listed in the course overview in the Canvas app?
Yeah, so my OM lab, now quiz will be made available today, and you will be having a week to finish the quiz. It will be due, I believe, next Monday.
Okay.
You are supposed to take the quiz.
It's on chapters 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, just 1 and 2.
And you said it's fine if we use 12th edition of the book, an older copy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that is okay. If you are still not able to purchase that and take the quiz, let me know. I will find a way
Right.
to keep the deadline for you.
My tracking number says it should be in by Wednesday or Thursday, so I should be able to start right after that. And I have the copy of the book already, so I've already started reading chapter 1. I'll
Okay,
probably be done by Wednesday.
I see. Gotcha.
So there's nothing. I just want to make sure there's nothing like other assignments listed in my lab that's not in the Canvas app in course overview, because everything seems to be due by the end of like next week.
Yeah. So, except for the discussion question, you got some time to do it.
Okay, that's good then. And
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about the group project. So when it says meet and present, I'm assuming the first two, like the one with Aldi and Southwestern, is presenting on September 23rd and October 7th.
Mhm.
What is the meet? Is that the scheduled time we're meeting with our teammates or meeting with you?
With me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want you to prepare your presentation materials and go over that with me so that I can give you feedback in advance.
Do you know if the group for the second case is full yet? If not, I'll probably just get it out of the way earlier and join the second group to present on October 7th.
So the second group that is going to go this Wednesday, I'm sorry, I think it's full because well, you can ask them if they can join. You can, but yeah, you can like send an email or you can just reply to their discussion board,
Right.
there, expressing your interest.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I had, so thank you. And hopefully I get my cards in the mail in time to purchase it.
Right. So have a good day, and I will see you in a couple of days.
Have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.